Hey guys, I know it's been a while. I just wanted to talk about my latest addiction, and that's Path of Exile 2. With this video, I just want to talk about overall what I enjoyed and some very minor complaints that I had that I think may be alleviated whenever the game finally releases from early access. The overall verdict on the game is it's fantastic. I think anyone who is a hardcore ARPG fan should play it. If you're really into ARPGs, I think you should play it overall. If you're just a casual ARPG fan and you're coming in from I don't know, Diablo 4, maybe Last Epoch even, this game might not be for you. Especially since it has a rather steep learning curve, as usual with Path of Exile, and the fact that it's even harder now, regardless of all of the new changes. And we'll get to that. For now, let's talk about what makes Path of Exile 2 good. Path of Exile 2 has a revamped graphics. I think it's a very beautiful game in particular. It has modern graphics, everything has a lot better visual clarity, but it still has some problems with some animations and some projectiles, but we'll get to that. For now though, it's a very pretty game and it runs decently well. I'd say it's still just as difficult as before, probably even more difficult than Path of Exile 1, I'd say there's a lot more bosses, all with their own little one-shot mechanic. There was an interesting decision to remove spammable movement abilities. There's still movement in the game, but it's definitely not as fast as Path of Exile 1. The best parts of Path of Exile 2 are surprisingly the story. The story is rather engaging, and the fights are really fun and thrilling, and I'd say that they're actually quite addicting to get into, outside of just doing maps and, kind of chillaxing on the side. And I'd say I'd have about almost 200 hours now. In comparison to Path of Exile 1, Path of Exile 2 story is a lot more cohesive. It implements the events that you're used to, and it incorporates the events that you've seen from previous seasons in Path of Exile 1 and incorporates the story here. And there are some interesting characters this time around, and some old characters as well. Don't want to spoil anything, but Path of Exile 2, I feel like the story round this time it's not as convoluted, and it doesn't get lost. It's very grounded, and you know exactly what's going on. It reminds me a lot of how Diablo 2's story was, where you were on this wild goose chase in order to finally confront Diablo at the end. Spoiler for Diablo 2. There is about, I'd say, 20 to 40 hours worth of content, and I really like all the bosses. They're very, very difficult, or fairly difficult the first time around that you fight them. They have a lot of engaging mechanics about them. Nothing is very stale, and everything just remains exciting. Even when you fight them again, it's on cruel difficulty and into maps. It remains to be somewhat exciting. It's definitely not like D4 where you kill a boss and he does two things. Now the bosses have you have to dodge, you have to watch out for certain abilities, and there's a lot of threatening stuff that they throw at you, and there's a lot of things that differentiate them from one another thematically. It's just, there's a lot of good variety, a lot of engagement with the bosses. It's what makes for a very satisfying game to play, and I think that's what makes Path of Exile 2 just really good. It's a really difficult game to put down. Another thing is that I like is the convenience and the quality of life that it has. I like the WASD, it's very intuitive, it just feels natural, and that's like what I felt was missing from Path of Exile 1. Another thing about the quality of life is not having to level out new gems. Now you can just make new gems. That's a very welcome change instead of just having to grind over and over and chancing at falling gems over and over. It's a very welcome system that allows you to experiment. It's very welcome on the experimentation on the crafting end as well as the skill end as well. I thought the maps were way too huge in Path of Exile 2. There's a lot of times like where you would backtrack for key items or where you would backtrack just to get from one place to another to find the next location. This is very evident whenever you get to Act 3. In Act 3, the maps start becoming a lot more big. I felt like Act 1 and 2 were perfectly paced, but as soon as you get to Act 3, at least the later half of it, it became very mundane. It just felt like there was a lot of filler at the end, and they decided to just make the maps 5 times bigger than they needed to be. It's not just a problem in the story with the bigger maps, it's also a problem whenever you're actually getting into... whenever you're getting into Waystones or the in-game maps, quote-unquote. There are a lot of maps that just suck in the in-game. I've noticed there is this large trend of maps that feel super cramped. So many mobs just block your path. A lot of mobs do crazy on-the-ground abilities that just one-shot you. I feel like there should be a bit more space in some maps. There's maps that are super open, and those are usually the best maps. And then there's a lot of really crappy maps that are super tight on the space. There's a lot of time wasters. I've done this map dozens of times. It's called Augury. That is so terrible. You have to pull down levers, and that takes like 5 million years to pull down one giant lever. There's a lot of things in your downtime that just literally serve no purpose other than just to waste your time. There are a lot of annoying mods, that's the usual Path of Exile, and I just want to briefly touch some mods. I'm not talking really about the temporal field, I'm talking about the things that just explode on death. I hate these effects where if you kill something and you're not really paying attention, it just kills you. I am so tired of ARPGs incorporating these mechanics. This is another problem, and it's the visual clarity. There's a lot of annoying effects that just kind of blend into the background. Imagine you're killing like hundreds of just monsters and you're trying to go as fast as possible, and then you just die out of nowhere. There isn't really much to do. All you're doing is just working up to killing pinnacle bosses, and then you're gonna kill them again when they're at max difficulty. Regardless of that point, regardless of there being a lack of content and not really doing a whole lot outside of just spamming millions of maps, as much as I enjoy the bosses, I feel like, there should be more. I do like what there is. It's just, it feels a bit stale, and I get that. The lack of defensive options. There is a problem with defensive stats in that your build is either a Chaos Inoculation build or an Acrobatics build, and then every other build below that. If you're not one of those builds, SOL. That is a problem that I found on the tree, is there's really not anything exciting or awesome that helps with your survivability. There is Mind Over Matter, but that kind of goes into Chaos Inoculation, and really there's just not really any appealing options to help you survive. So it's either you're using high energy shields, or you're just, or you're just trying to brave through the vast amount of maps with just pure grit, HP, and armor. Keck W. There just needs to be more variety instead of just being pigeonholed into only two really good and relevant options. The crafting is ass. That's as light as I can put it. The crafting sucks. It's just hard to guarantee what you want now, and even if you have like a surplus of resources, I know you guys like banging stuff with Exalt orbs and Chaos orbs and all that and using your omens, but I miss the crafting bench. I miss guaranteeing like certain mods that I prefer and like, and it's just a lot more convenient that way to get what you want. It helps down the road with your ults as well, instead of just trying to randomize some good gear or buy something. Really, I feel like the crafting system is such a heavy miss this time around. This time around, you have to just gamble all the time. There's no real way to guarantee what you want. It's kind of a mess right now. Another problem I had was the one portal maps. You know, you get one opportunity to do your map that has specific events on it. Tier 15, right? And you die in that tier 15 map. Okay, this is a blank map. There's nothing, right? You just went into a blank map with a tier 15 and you just die, right? Say goodbye to the tier 15. You don't get any more opportunities. You lost 10% of your XP, and that's it for that tier 15, and you're out. Now you're down to like, what, tier 9s? I think that's kind of a problem. I honestly, there can be an argument for just having one life, technically, for just doing, you know, your average day atlas mapping, but I feel like the sustainability should be a bit less harsh whenever, especially when you're starting out. But as soon as you get into the in game, like, and you start building your atlas map, it does get a lot better. It's just early on, it's just so insufferable. It's annoying, but there is a way to help sustain. You're gonna want to use those your higher tier maps on bosses, so, or fight the Arbiter for some tier 16s. Sustain those. The bigger problem is having one life for the pinnacle bosses. I think that's for an argument for some contention, because I feel like the worst advice you can give someone is, oh, just look up the fight. Just look up the fight. Or maybe just, you know, get carried. You know, it kind of defeats the purpose, but, you know, you don't want to lose your Atlas points there. And I think that kind of sucks. It kind of sucks just going from, like, this awesome campaign where you get multiple tries on a boss, and, you know, you're just having a blast, and you're progging a boss yourself, and it's kind of like Dark Souls, but except if you die, you're dead for good. Until you spend another, I don't know, day or two getting back to that pinnacle boss you worked so hard for. For the pinnacle bosses, at the very least, you should have multiple portals. That would be a very nice quality of life change, especially if you're trying to prog a boss and get better and better at it. So that's what they should bring back from Path of Exile 1. You can fight me on that. I just feel like it's just genuinely a little too harsh to just have one opportunity to fight a boss blind. Imagine the look of despair on people that got to the pinnacle bosses first, right? And there was no documentation, there was nothing. It's just such a bad solution where it's just like, oh, you gotta look it up. You know, you gotta look up this fight in order to do it properly. But it's like, that kind of defeats the purpose of what makes the game currently really, really fun. Is a really strong, like, fun boss that's engaging and exciting, right? You don't want to lose, you don't want to die, you know, but now when you die, you lose more than, like, hours of work. You know, not only do you lose experience, you lose like a day or two of just effort. Oh, that is another problem. I still haven't found any Burning Monolith tokens, or map fragments rather. So that really blows. I feel like the entire Atlas map, should be maybe redesigned. I kind of like what they were going with it, but it is a bit stale in terms of its structure. I mean, all you have are just nodes, and then the really important nodes, and then what else? The towers. So I feel like it could be a bit more exciting than that. And it's just like hard to see where the important nodes are. And I mean, what the important nodes I mean are like the citadels that you need for the Burning Monolith that you'll find later. The fact of the matter is, I feel like citadels shouldn't take me. It's been like a week now, a week plus, and I still haven't seen a citadel. So that's kind of crazy. And I've done dozens of maps, and I still haven't seen one. So think about that in correlation to how Path of Exile 1 was in terms of your boss development and acquiring your fragments. You know, you do a certain amount of maps or bosses and you build up for the Maven, and then, you know, you get a fragment to do, I don't know, Uber Shape or whatever, and you can just do that over and over again in order to finally, you know, have a chance to or an opportunity to get to Shaper. I don't know, you've done 100 maps and you still haven't found one. That kind of sucks. It kind of sucks to just be locked out of that. Well, not locked, but it just, I don't like the RNG element of having to track the important citadel down in order to finally do Burning Monolith, right? Everyone else that I know has found a citadel, but where's mine? My overall review of Path of Exile 2 is it's a very satisfying, addicting experience, but regardless of that, even though I can't put it down, I'm not confident enough to really suggest this game to just any ARPG fan. I feel like if you're in for a challenge, you love doing bosses, you love having very difficult content, and engaging content as well, then this game is for you. You know, if you like having a difficult action RPG experience that's very fleshed out, very dynamic and detailed is the best way I can put it, then this is for you. It's perfect, you know, and you're gonna easily get your money's worth. You know, I feel like this game I would have easily paid $60 for what this game is right now. And I feel like a lot of people would say the same. You know, this is not a $30 game. This game is giving me, like, I don't know, you know, again, 200 hours and I'm still going of gameplay. But if you're really just doing it for the story, then, you know, it's still worth $60, you know, in comparison to other titles I've played before. So, because the story itself, if you do it back to back, like normal into cruel, that's like already 30-40 hours easily. Game is fantastic, but I can't really recommend it to just anyone. You have to really, really like those difficult games, difficult action RPGs, because if you don't, you're gonna get frustrated really easily with it. So I would say you would like it if you could give this game a chance. So, and I would recommend it. Sorry for not posting anything in a while, guys. There's just this long train or window of games that are just like this. Honestly, this year has been really good in terms of just games and releases, and you know, 2025 might be better. I've been playing a lot of games this year, and it's like hard to do content, you know, fast enough because there's another good game that just comes out, you know, like Persona 3 Reload, and then you have Silent Hill 2 Remake, and then you get Metaphor ReFantazio, and I get Path of Exile 2, like, it's like, it's really hard. And then now you get Monster Hunter, what's it called? Wilds? There's just too many games. But I will be posting sometime soon after this video, while I'm trying to catch up and really get my fix on Path of Exile 2. So thanks for watching, and as usual, see you around.